Welcome to today's session of Get the NAC. My name is Sue Steele, and I'm your host today. I'm very excited about this particular session of our podcast because I get to hear firsthand the results of our 2025 National Academy of Construction Safety Symposia, the recap and the impact that whole effort has made in transforming our industry. My guests today are Dr. Edd Gibson, who's President and CEO of the National Academy of Construction, and Mr. Tony Leketa, who is Chairman of the Safety Committee for the NAC. So welcome, Tony and Ed, to our podcast.
Thanks, Sue.
So what we're going to do after a brief self-introduction, and let me say this just for clarity, because some of our listeners might be new. All three of us are members of the National Academy of Construction. We were obviously inducted different years, and when Tony and Ed tell you about their bios, they will tell you when they were inducted. I was inducted in 2021, and I'm currently chair of the Executive Insights Committee, and a podcast host. So I'm excited to be the one to do the podcast today. So after a brief introduction, we're really going to dig into the recap and impact of this series of safety workshops, which Ed and Tony will relate to you. And on a personal level, I was thrilled that I could be at our annual meeting in October, where the National Academy adopted a new tagline called Transforming the Industry to Build a Better Nation. And I think you'll hear today how the National Academy is making an impact to transform the industry. And I'm excited that we can go through it in detail. So hold on, we're getting ready to start. And I'd like to just begin with the self-introduction. Ed, why don't you kick it off?
Thanks, Sue. My name's Edd Gibson. I'm the President and CEO of the National Academy of Construction. Was inducted into NAC in 2005. A little bit about my background. I started as the President and CEO of NAC in January of 2023. And before that, I was a faculty member for about 30 years at different universities around the country, teaching civil engineering, construction management programs, including safety, during my academic career. Before that, I was in industry for a while and also started my career as a military officer in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Well, that sounds great. I know we'll hear more about you as we go through the podcast. So thank you. Thank you, Ed. And Tony, let's hear about your experiences in the industry and in NAC.
Sure, Sue. Thank you. I was inducted in NAC in 2016, so this is my 10th year of membership. My background, I got extensive construction experience, both on the ground managing construction and programmatically as a senior executive. I'm retired military, and I worked as a civilian in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers before I joined Parsons. It's a multi-billion-dollar company engaged in construction industry around the globe. I've managed construction projects valued at a few $1,000s to major programs involving the constructions of hundreds of individual projects valued at billions of dollars. And I've worked with small contractors as well as industry giants. But I guess what's most important is I've seen the benefits when a company has a commitment to safety culture. And I've also seen the consequences when safety is not part of a company's value system. So I'm delighted to be here and to have an opportunity to discuss what I consider to be an important initiative to improve safety performance in the construction industry, as well as preparing undergraduate students with a desire to work in construction. Back to you, Sue.
That's great. Well, it's an honor and a thrill to have both of you on this podcast, and I'm sure our listeners are going to really enjoy it and share it with a lot of our friends. So I'd like to just kick it off with a few questions. Ed, starting with you. You've been sort of the executive sponsor, if we want to call it that, of these symposia. And maybe you can just give us a little bit of the background of the benefits and, the strategy, just give us the big picture of what the NAC was trying to accomplish with this initiative.
Yeah, thanks. And so I was involved a little bit with this whole effort even before I became the president and CEO of NACs. The whole effort started around 2019. The safety committee within NAC was very interested in trying to improve safety, obviously, and felt like that preparation of undergraduate students in engineering and construction focused programs would be something that could try to help maybe shift the curve a little bit in our industry. If you look at our industry, construction industry in the United States going back at least for the past 20 years, the number of fatalities, the fatality rate, number of serious injuries and accidents really has been pretty flat. It hasn't improved, and so as part of that concern, our safety committee wanted to do something to focus on that area. And so began looking at this idea of trying to do something with higher education, as I said, in 2019, working with the National Academy of Engineering and others. And in 2022 and 2023, fall of 22, spring of 23, held 5 symposia at different universities around the country. And those were highly successful, a lot of interest from academia and also industry. And then the committee evaluated that, felt like we needed to have some additional symposia, trying to get a little bit better coverage around the country in terms of geographically, and also to share what we had learned in the first set of symposia, and to see if there was anything we didn't learn as we went through. And so we had those symposia earlier this year in 2025. As the sponsor, as the president and CEO, my job was to kind of herd the cats, help with getting the symposia organized, getting funding for the symposia, making sure that we had speakers, helping to get those speakers lined up. Because I have a background in academia and in industry, working with higher education and getting universities engaged in providing speakers, hosting these events, and so on and so forth. We did hold a series of 5 of those symposia earlier this year. The first one was in Washington, D.C., hosted by the National Academy of Engineering and also Virginia Tech. We followed that up with a symposia at University of Southern California, another one at Oregon State University. We had another one at Purdue University, all of those in the first half of the year, and then in September we finished things up with a symposia at North Carolina State University. I think the thing that we really learned from all of these symposia, even the first 5, and I've had the pleasure and privilege of being in attendance at 7 of the 10, is that there is a lot of interest in trying to improve the exposure of undergraduate students to this whole idea of safety culture, to provide some tools for higher education in that regard, and to try to build relationships between industry and higher education so that students who matriculate out of these programs are prepared to go into our industry. We know that there's a lot of things about tools and rules in safety, but really for an organization to actually improve and try to reduce the risk exposure of its employees and trying to reduce the number of accidents and injuries, it takes the entire organization. And so as we came out of this, we really developed a definition of safety culture, and it's an all-employee system of shared beliefs, practices, and attitudes in an organization that shapes behavior and drives the way in which all work is performed safely. And so when you kind of think about that, it means from top to bottom, every employee, everyone bought in, all the systems in place to make it happen. So it's been a lot of learning, and I can share some other thoughts as we move forward, but I think it's been very successful. We've seen universities embrace many of the things that we've discussed, and some new programs are actually in place as well.
Ed, that's great. I really appreciate you setting the stage with the definition of safety culture, because some of our listeners may not know what that means, or at least we've given them a framework for it. And I'd like to hear from Tony in a minute, but as you kind of sum up the big picture, you said there have been 10 different events, and the last 5 were held primarily in 25 or 24 and 25. I was just trying to get
They were
clarity.
all, we started in February of 25 and finished up in September of 25
Got
as
it.
well. So all 5 of those were in 2025. The first set started in fall of 22 and ended in spring of 23. And in total, almost 500 individuals have participated in these 10 symposia. And it's been very successful in trying to attract people to learn and to share. And as we've seen, actually to help each other as they've gone along. I think it takes a lot of industry input to make this happen.
Yep, that's fantastic. Well, Tony, you're, as you said, and as I have observed, you're a veteran of this industry. Obviously, you have a lot of experience in every aspect of safety, and now you've been the chair for a couple of years now of the safety committee. Tell us a little bit about the role that you had, the role the safety committee had in setting this up effectively. Any lessons learned, or just give us your point of view of what it took to really pull this off.
Okay, Sue, thank you. So the problem, as Ed has said, is how do we influence a reduction in the number of fatalities being experienced in the construction industry? And that number is around 1,000 fatalities each year. And as Ed said, it's pretty constant year over year. Now, the safety committee, when we put our heads together and we started talking about this, we came to the conclusion that the key to success is to live a culture of safety in construction companies. It's actually true in any organization where hazards exist, which is just about everywhere. And we identified this need to include academia in construction safety and the concept of safety culture in undergraduate education to better prepare undergraduates who will enter the industry, because it was our observation that most universities don't talk about construction safety. You say, well, wait a minute now. They all teach safety. Yeah, but the safety that they teach is usually focused on code compliance and design type implications. It's not the construction safety. And where the incidents are happening is obviously on the ground where the construction is being accomplished. So we decided to use this symposia approach to address the concept of safety culture. But most importantly, we're bringing together representatives from industry and representatives from academia to share ideas and realities. So our first task was to identify where we would conduct the symposia. And it was members of the safety committee who stepped forward and volunteered to serve as organizers of the symposia at institutions where they were either working or they were an alum. And so there were 10 members of the safety committee that pretty well organized that. That includes our ex officio member, who is Dr. Edd Gibson, who basically served as the organizer with my help at the National Academy of Engineering. So then we solicited support from members of the National Academy of Construction who were actually engaged in the construction industry to speak at the symposia and to interact with the universities where we were holding the symposia. And the organizers of the individual events would solicit participation by local construction firms, and they acted as the point of contact with the university. Typically, the organizing member had some affiliation with the university, so they'd work with the key university representatives, typically the dean of engineering and the department heads for civil engineering to participate. A key challenge we faced was general reluctance on the part of universities to introduce new programs into their curricula. Academia is pretty well stressed with the current demands associated with credentialing their programs. So we focused on things that could be done without necessarily creating new courses of study to introduce the concepts of safety culture to students as they completed other coursework, particularly laboratories where they would be working with concrete cylinders or something like that, and to impress upon them the importance of these students entering the industry, that they have an awareness of safety culture. A critical key to establishing a safety culture is a commitment from the senior leadership in the company, which passes down through all levels of leadership to the individual worker. Everyone takes ownership for maintaining safety and a belief that all accidents can be prevented. And I'll tell you, when I first came into the industry and I was first involved with construction, there was usually a safety person. It's usually a guy. There was a safety guy, and everybody kind of deferred to the safety guy. When you start talking about safety, I would say, "Oh, we'll go get Mac. He's the safety guy, and he'll take care of it." So this is a sea change from the way things used to be, where everybody in the organization participates in the safety of the company. In addition, it also includes a continuing non-punitive focus on safety, where the organization uses near misses, for example, to increase awareness and protect the workforce. I'll have more to say here after you introduce the next topic here that I'm going to talk about.
Well, I love the way you set it up and built on what Ed said about it. The culture is from top to bottom, inside out. Everyone has an ownership role in driving and owning the safety culture and making it happen. Not just the CEO, not just the safety guy, not just the safety department. We all have a role in it. And if that doesn't happen, we really don't have a pervasive total safety culture, if you will.
Very true.
Ed, do you want to add anything before we move on? You have any thoughts?
Well, I think I'll echo what Tony said. I can recall also getting into the industry back in the day, without dating myself too much. And really, it was the message to all the workers, including myself, as a laborer during that time frame, was you need to watch out for yourself. And it really there wasn't system safety. There wasn't this focus on culture other than your supervisor saying, hey, watch out for yourself, stay safe out there. We didn't really look at things the same way back in those days.
And if you got hurt, you got yelled at. And you got
if you got hurt or you didn't tell anybody you got hurt.
It was a punitive environment there.
Yeah, or you just didn't tell anybody you got hurt because you didn't want to get yelled at.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that comes to mind here is that all of these students graduate from these programs and they go to work, many of them in our industry, some in design, some in construction, and so on. And many of them go to work for smaller organizations. And so the thought process is, if we can prepare them and get their recognition of this whole idea of safety culture and safety systems in place at the undergraduate level, hopefully they can go in and help the companies they're going to work for. They may go to work for a major organization that has a very mature safety culture, but in many cases they won't. And so hopefully they can help in that organization getting better, because about 87% of all fatalities in the construction industry are in companies with 99 employees or less. And so we would really like to see this spread out further than it is today. Many of the large major companies do really well, not perfect, but really well. So that's another thought process here.
Well, that's great. So let's build on that a minute. You said there were about 500 attendees, and now we've set up a situation, I think, with the YouTube channel that we can have a broader reach. And I think what I'd love to hear about was that because it was such a diverse audience, and now we're trying to reach a bigger, larger, diverse audience across the globe, from people that are students or graduate students, to executives or CEOs, like you mentioned, even some of the smaller firms that maybe don't have the resources a bigger firm would have. Ed, starting with you, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the messages or the impacts of the material, the content, and where that people can get it if they're a student or a graduate student or someone who's affiliated with the university. And then maybe Tony, you can follow up with more the industry side. If you're somebody who's actually actively in the industry, how would you take advantage of what people learned at the symposia?
Yeah, I would, first of all, we had, if I combine the 10 symposia that we've held, we had 499 participants, and they represented 86 universities and 155 construction organizations. So pretty diverse group of folk. And what we did after the first set of symposia, we actually published a proceedings document, and it's available at our webpage if you're interested in what happened during that first set of 5 symposia. It's available for downloading under research and proceedings in our NAC knowledge. We're in the process of finalizing the proceedings from this past 5, so that's one place. But more importantly, I think since we first developed the 5 symposia in 22 and 23, the safety committee stepped back and said, we really need to define what we mean by safety culture. And so I think that right now there are 19 executive insights that lay out different aspects of safety culture. These are short reads, 2-3 pages long, and have a specific topic or whatever that they're focused on. So again, if you're interested in any of the nuances of safety culture, we have a lot of stuff that's been written. In this last go round, we decided, because we wanted to try to provide more of what happened in those workshops or symposia, we videotaped every presenter. We didn't provide every presenter in YouTube, but many of the ones that we felt were most far-reaching, we videotaped, we edited, and they're available on our YouTube channel now. And the best way to find it, you can go through our webpage or just type in Safety Culture NAC, and you will find it as a YouTube channel. And eventually we'll have about 20 presentations in there from different perspectives. Some of those are from companies, and many of those are very powerful. From academia in terms of what is working and perhaps what is not working, and from several panels. And so, and we've got owner perspectives, we've got contractor perspectives, we've got academic perspectives. So most of those are 20-30 minutes long, and they're great resources to get up to speed on the subject pretty quickly, and also to share in classrooms. That's really what we're trying to do, is provide documentation and videos so that people can use these in their classes when they're teaching students about what we mean by safety culture.
Well, that's fantastic. I think the YouTube channel is amazing. I have myself benefited from going on listening to some of the different presentations and panels. It's fantastic, and I'm just going to encourage all our listeners. It's, again, Safety Culture NAC on YouTube, and I think you'll be able to get to the link. And then, as Ed said, there's probably 15 to 20 different presentations. So, Tony, continuing on with this conversation, you had a vision, right, to reach the academic side, but also the industry side. So tell us a little bit about what you saw happen as you played this out last year or this year.
Yeah, let me preface that with some discussion about what the safety committee was doing to make the symposia successful. So the second round of symposia, as we've already recognized, had the benefit of the first round with lessons learned and experiences in that first round of symposia. But the first round, it relied on the experience of the committee members, the safety committee members, to come up with a format and topics for the symposium. And generally speaking, each symposium followed a set format. There were minor variations and differences, but for the most part, there was a set format. Most members of the safety committee have served as hiring managers somewhere in their careers, and they have an appreciation for the importance of including safety culture in undergraduate education. As I mentioned earlier, industry has come a long way in terms of what they do relative to safety, and we are continuing to emphasize this safety culture concept. So the committee members were able to utilize their personal experiences to target key concepts that should be included. For example, I came from the Corps of Engineers and Parsons, and I had two excellent experiences where safety was embedded in the culture of the organization, and it started at the very top of that organization, and it went throughout the whole organization. And I was president of one of the companies in Parsons, and we would get together periodically for corporate reviews. And included in those corporate reviews were a number of safety items that related to the safety culture. I mentioned near misses before. We had to report on the number of near misses that we had concepts on. We had television set up throughout the headquarters of the company, but also out in the field offices of the company. And they included little charts that talked about what was going on in the way of this safety culture. So the safety committee, we included discussion of the symposium, the status of planning in our monthly meetings, and we provided advice and assistance to organize this and best accomplish the objectives. And we drew on members of the safety committee to actually participate in the symposia as panel members or organizers. I personally served as moderator for three of the symposia, in addition to being an organizer in the first round of the symposia. So I brought an appreciation and experience from the other symposia I participated in, as well as my experience organizing the program. Finally, we got excellent support from member companies and the NAC leadership, who provided money and resources when it was needed to actually execute the symposium. So it was an overall National Academy of Construction event, and a lot of people were involved. Now, the industry people that came, they gave firsthand credible examples of the benefit resulting from undergraduate exposure to safety culture when students were interviewing for employment during job fairs or recruiting experiences. And this hit home with a lot of the academic people that were participating. And we actually had students participating, and that would clearly get their attention. University representatives, they shared their stresses that they felt in adding to the curricula. So they were very receptive to ideas that built on their curriculum as it existed and what they could do to embed safety culture concepts in that. I mentioned that many symposia included students engaged in getting degrees with the intent of entering construction industry. They got excellent insights and appreciation from the many speakers, particularly from industry, who emphasized the importance of safety culture, as well as having the opportunity to interact directly on a one-to-one basis with industry representatives during breaks and the social hour. But the biggest advantage of the symposia was the opportunity for academia to interact with industry on a one-to-one basis, share ideas and challenges, and talk about a mutual objective, which is improving safety performance in the industry. I
You're
guess that's
right.
about it.
The NAC brought a lot of different groups together to get the synergy around improving safety culture. And I think that really showed, and the media that we've now posted on YouTube, you can just see the dynamics between academia and industry leaders, students, private citizens. Ed, do you want to add anything to just the impact that Tony just described?
Well, I think one of the keys for all of this, and we've seen it a little bit already with new programs at NJIT and also at Virginia Tech, is that industry got involved and said, we want you to do this, and they provided resources. And, there has to be a push from the industry sector toward academia. There's a lot going on in academia. Many people in academia don't have a real understanding that safety culture is really important. They're focused on the technical sides of the degree programs, and frankly, their cups are full, right? And so, for this to happen, industry has to be engaged, and I think that's one of the key learnings that we had that came out of all 10 of these symposia as we went through.
No, that's great. So maybe we have a few more minutes. I'd love to just drill down on any takeaways or any success stories, any aha moments. When Tony, for example, you were putting an agenda together, you had certain speakers lined up. Were there any speakers or any messages that really resonated with you and with an audience that maybe you weren't expecting, or that was especially challenging and exciting? And the same with you, Ed. I'll start with Tony. Are there any takeaways that just would pique our listeners' interest to dig into the YouTube channel and learn more?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because one of the industry participants at the symposium that I organized was Madigan Construction. It's a mid-sized local construction company, and it was doing work at the university where we were holding the symposium. And Fran Madigan, the son of the company's founder, who was now the CEO of the company, he actually participated as a panel member. He called me shortly after the symposium. We had a presentation during the symposium and a discussion on the industry shift from hard hats to helmets. And he wanted me to know, he was so impressed by the presentation and the symposium that his company had made the shift from hard hats to helmets and was requiring them not only for their employees on the job, but also for subcontractors. And they were evaluating the other things that they needed to do to ensure that a culture of safety existed in their company. And then the department head of the Civil, Environmental, and Architectural Engineering Department called me a few months after the symposium. And he asked me if I would be willing to come to their project presentation day, where students presented their qualifying projects for evaluation and act as a judge. He also asked if I would speak to a gathering of students, faculty, and his industry advisor board on safety culture and its importance, which I did. There were probably over 100 people in that audience when I made that presentation. I got all gussied up with all kinds of gear on me and safety, and I went in there and I gave them a presentation. But the biggest examples of impact from the symposia were at two universities, the New Jersey Institute of Technology and Virginia Tech, where new programs and degrees were created on the subject of safety culture. And they're in their nascent stages, and they're growing, and they're getting better and better as they go through time. Now, Virginia Tech did not per se. We didn't even go to Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech was part sponsor of the Washington, D.C. event, so they had a key role to play. But that was big stuff, and that certainly was impressive to me that they would go ahead and do that.
So, Tony, let me be sure I heard. Did they add a requirement for graduation, a course, or what specifically did the New Jersey
Well,
Institute?
Ed can help me on this because I'm not an academic, but it was a course at NJIT, as I recall, or a couple of courses
Yeah.
at
Okay.
NJIT, and at Virginia Tech, actually a degree program. You get a degree. I got that
Yeah,
right,
we've
Ed?
seen, yeah, and at NJIT, I think they added a minor in construction safety, which included safety culture. Uh, the program at Virginia Tech, the faculty member in charge of that program actually attended a symposium in our first go round at Colorado, University of Colorado Boulder, and then went back and created this program. And then he was a sponsor of the first symposia in Washington, D.C. We've seen a number of different programs that have added courses, have changed the way they've focused on certain parts of the curricula. For instance, doing process hazard reviews before laboratories, doing a lot more site visits, and some of those focused on safety and so on. And I think so. It's had some impact. It's not. It's small and growing as we go through there. I think a few things that I learned, having been to a few of these now and listened in on a number of these presentations, which by the way you can listen in to many of them on our YouTube channel, but it we didn't have a hard time getting senior executives in construction companies to actually come in and talk to the audience. Very busy people, but as long as the schedule worked out, pretty much they would come and talk because they were proud of what they'd done in their company, but also were very humble in what they had done in their company. And I guess that's the thing that struck me as I listened, because every one of those companies, and this could be Clark and Turner and Alan Myers, you name it, we had a lot of different companies, Hoffman Construction. They all had an aha moment when someone or different workers were seriously injured or killed, and they said, we've got to do better. Even though at the time they might have been considered a very safe company. And they all went on a journey, and the journey isn't over yet. And if you listen to a lot of these presentations, you hear the same kinds of things. And these people didn't coordinate their presentations. It's just, here's what our company did, and here's how we did. And it's a continuous process of us getting better and trying to save people's lives. I think the other thing that struck me from the first set of symposia to the second set of symposia is the pace of change. Even though a lot of things were the same, what we heard in the second set of symposia is more of a focus now on not only safety but health, and especially mental health, with the understanding that in our industry we have a lot of people who die by suicide, and there's things that we can do in our industry to help with the mental health of our employees, and that leads obviously to better productivity and better focus in our organizations, but it saves lives. And also this idea that technology is starting to catch up with us a little bit to help in our safety systems and understanding what we need to do, especially artificial intelligence and the use of drones and robotics and things like that and sensing that can help us get better as well. And just in a 2 or 3 year period, it seems to me that it's changed dramatically. So we saw some changes. The biggest one was a big focus on mental health and some really heart-wrenching stories from companies that said, we're just not going to allow this to happen anymore. And it changed the entire company. And usually it was someone who really took a stand and said, we're going to do this from top to bottom, and we're not going to take any excuses. And so that's something that I got out of it in the second set of really both sets as we went through.
Thank you. I'm really glad you brought up the mental health and total health aspect of safety that has really expanded, I would say, in the last 5 years and gotten a lot more focus. In fact, Ed, if I can just reference, you mentioned 19 EIs or executive insights on safety culture. We just finished 3 podcasts on mental health that people can tune into where they get their podcasts, NAC, Get the kNACk podcasts, and those were fantastic on mental health and suicide and abuse prevention. So I'm going to put a plug in there for NAC making an impact in those areas too. So we've kind of got to the end of our time here. We have a few more minutes. Is there anything, Tony, you or Ed would want to add that we feel like we missed in just discussing these safety symposia, the impacts, and the recap for our listeners?
Yeah, I don't think that we missed anything, but I do want to emphasize the fact that safety culture, it's not just a program. It's a value. It's something that permeates an organization, and it gets inclusive buy-in from everyone in the organization to ensure that everyone goes home at the end of the day. Principles of safety culture have applicability not only in construction, but in other manufacturing and process industries, as well as retail operations. So safety culture is something that people should be aware of, and it's something that they should think about. And if they're going into an organization, they should talk about it with whoever they're talking to in that organization, whether or not that organization has a safety culture.
Great. Appreciate that clarity. Ed, any thoughts?
Yeah, I want to shift a little bit, and I don't want this to sound like NASCAR, but what I want you to do is hear the names of our sponsors and our university sponsors, because I think you'll see from that uh, that these individuals in these organizations really feel that this is an extremely important subject. On the on the sponsorships, financial sponsorships, and this doesn't even include the companies that participated as well. We had New York Building Foundation, Brookfield Properties, Kiewit, Railroad Construction Company, Turner, Williams Brothers, AGC, Clark, Penta, STV, Gilbane, Cadell, Kent, McKissick, Hensel Phelps, Rosendon, Southland, Suffolk. I mean, those are pretty large companies who feel like this is really important. And then at the university levels, we had some of the best universities in the country. We had Kansas, Worcester, New Jersey Institute of Technology, University of Colorado Boulder, NC State, Texas A&M, Texas Austin, Purdue, Oregon State, USC, and Virginia Tech. And so you can see there's a real interest in this subject. And when you kind of look at that, they all provided resources, sponsorships, hosted meetings at their facilities. And so, it's a tribute to them that they feel like this is an extremely important subject.
So, with that, I'd like to close the podcast and tell our listeners thank you for tuning in to this episode of Get the kNACk with Dr. Edd Gibson and Mr. Tony Leketa about our NAC Safety Symposia, the impact and the recap. Please provide feedback on this session to me by email at getthenack@naocon.org, and let us know of any other topics that may be of interest. As I said, to get more information on this particular topic, also reach out to us at naocon.org/insights. And Get the kNACk will be back soon with more content. Have a safe day.